Believe in Everything Auburn is brought to you by Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From the preseason NFL to college ball kicking off, Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our winner-take-all $300,000 NFL Survivor pool for the upcoming season. And when the game's over, head on over to the online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, and unwind with one of the over 150 slot games. Head to the website today and use our promo code BELIEVE to get in on the action. That promo code BLEAV. Bet online. The game starts here. Dun, 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 dun. We're back, everybody. War Eagle, Taylor Davis, Jason Campbell. This is Everything Auburn, in case you forgot, because we kind of did. It has been a minute. I forgot how to run my mic, my recording system, everything, because it's been a few weeks, but we are here. And so is college football. Week 1 is upon us, crazy as it may seem to everyone, including myself. The offseason absolutely flew, but the Tigers will be hosting Alabama A&M this weekend for the first game day of the season in Auburn. Jordan Hare will be packed, I would assume, and the Tigers finally get to show off what they've been working on this offseason as year 2 of the Freeze era begins. So let's kind of talk big picture a little bit, Jay. I think that this offseason has kind of had a lot of expectation that things are going to be better because it's year 2. It's year 2 for Coach Freeze. It's year 2 for Peyton Thorne. It's a staff and a system terminology, play calling that seems to fit everyone a lot better than it did last year. You've brought in some key pieces you feel confident in the transfer portal. But the proof is going to be in the pudding, and it's going to have to be showcased on game day. So what are you kind of most looking forward to come Saturday in terms of what you're feeling optimistic about? And what is still a big question mark in your mind that you think will at least get a little more insight on Saturday?
Well, the most important thing is I'm just happy football is back. And
aren't we all?
We've been reading a lot of headlines in the offseason about, what Auburn's been doing recruiting-wise, what Auburn's been doing to help boost this football team to get back to winning games. And the first thing to come to my mind after watching one of the scrimmages is this Auburn defense.
Okay.
This defense, Philip Bleedy, Isaiah Rakes, all these guys that was brought in to help, the defensive line. Malik Blotton has shown a lot of promise early on. You already have Keldred and Jalen and those guys as well. But when you talk about as a whole, this defense, this front seven looks really, really good to me.
Good.
Taylor with 3 senior linebackers, so that's a huge key. There's a lot of leadership on this defense with Keontae Scott, being in one of preseason All SEC selections. So you just think about as a whole, games are won. If anybody watched the Florida State Georgia Tech game, like Georgia Tech could not stop anybody last year.
Yep.
It was the number 1 rushing attack in their conference, but they couldn't stop anybody. What happens? They go out, they change defensive coordinators, and all of a sudden they look a world of different. The first series didn't look that way.
Yeah.
They don't practice the first 15. Florida State went down the field with ease. Everybody thought, it's about to be a ramp. And next thing you know, Georgia Tech goes back down the field, and then they honed in defensively. So that game was won because of Georgia Tech's defense.
Yeah.
They would go down Florida State's offense. And I see Auburn doing a similar thing this year. Last year, they was good on defense, but were not great.
Okay.
This year, I think they have a chance to be great on defense. And
wow.
Just because of the front seven and the rotation that they will have with those guys up front. That's first and foremost. Offensively, everyone's going to be wanting to see fireworks go off Saturday night, right? The freshman 4. Everyone calls the Freeze 4. Bryce Kane, Simmons, Perry, and Cam. So how often will we see these guys early on in the game? Pretty often, just because of the simple fact you do have, Lambert Smith, who's the transfer from Penn State.
Yep.
He's the catalyst of that group. He's the senior leadership. Then you talk about Robert Lewis, the transfer from Georgia State. There's another guy that's going to be in there. But look for Simmons to have a huge day, just from a slot perspective. Look for Cam to have a big night, just because these guys, I think they want to get them touches.
Yeah.
We can run the football with Jarquez and Austin and Jeremiah, but in order to win this year, Taylor, we struggled passing the ball last year.
Right.
5 games in a row, I don't think we had more than 120 yards passing. So I don't think you're going to have that issue this year because the talent at the receiver position, and then another year with Peyton and at quarterback, with Coach Freeze calling the plays, I expect that to be a lot better. So, I'm excited to see what we do offensively Saturday in the passing game.
Yeah.
Front 7 on defense.
Okay. So Coach Freeze has obviously spoken candidly, like he typically does, about Peyton Thorne, saying, I'm confident in him. If I wasn't confident in him, I wouldn't have him in this situation. And I've been saying that the entire time. I feel even more confident about him today than I did in January when I told you guys that I was confident in him. But what I have also said is that he has to get the job done. And he's essentially telling Peyton, like, this comes with expectations. You may think that Hank is not, a viable option, but if we don't see performance and if you are actually hindering us in any way, I'll make the change as needed. And Hugh is really kind of putting his feet to the fire in that, because to your point, there are no more excuses for Peyton. Last year, there were several, that not being there in the spring, the play calling going back and forth, receivers that couldn't create separation in their routes. All of that has been eliminated. He's had ample time to build continuity and chemistry. You've got a proven play caller in Hugh Freeze and a system that he understands, and some of the best wide receivers, albeit young, but some of the best in the country. If something goes awry with this offense, Peyton will be a big part of the reason why.
Yeah, you always have to look at the quarterback, right? We're in a driven league. When you think about it as a whole, you think about the top teams in this conference. The first thing they always say is quarterback. The reason we talking about beforehand, everybody's high on Tennessee. Why? Because of the 5-star quarterback, right? It doesn't guarantee you victories, but it puts a stamp on it where everyone says it gives you hope. So I think, a lot of people remember Peyton coming off the bowl game. Didn't have a good bowl game. And like I said, this year you have to kind of rewrite the script, right? So you go out and all these new weapons offensively. There's only 2 receivers that's held back from last season, and that was Caleb Burton and
Camden Brown.
So there's only 2 guys. Everybody else is new, but they're playmakers. Even guys come out of high school are playmakers. But then you got 2 veteran guys, and then you have a tight end room full of veterans. You got Luke Gill, you got Fairweather. You got some guys you brought in there as well. One of the transfers from Maryland came in as tight end position. So you got guys and you got a great run game. So all the things around the quarterback position is there for the quarterback to have success. And I think Peyton is going to have a better year this year than last year because the threat of him running. He showed everybody last year that he could run. He got involved in the run game a lot of design runs for him. And then this year, it's going to be a lot of, the threat is there for you to take off, but there's a lot of 50-50 balls that you can give up and give our guys a chance to win. Cam Coleman's a freak of an athlete. He's a generation talent. And you put the ball anywhere close to this guy, he's going to outleap most defenders 7 out of 10 times and get that ball. So if he's even, give him a shot. Don't throw it out of bounds. Lead the ball in play to get these guys, give Perry a chance to go up and get the ball. He's another 6'5" receiver, strong, built like an SEC guy. Now, do these guys have a lot to learn? Yes, they have a lot to learn, but football is football when it's 50-50 and it's one-on-one. Just give a guy a chance to go up and get it. So I think those are the biggest things for him is how do I understand my matchups when they're there? I know the play call is designed to go front side, but if I see Cam Coleman backside one-on-one, I've almost got to think to myself to give him a shot.
Right.
Because, even though he's young, he's one of those, like I said, generational talents. Mm-hmm. And then you have Lambert Smith who can run, route run, confident, all those things. So you have guys is what I'm saying. So it's like you put Hank Brown at number 2. Holden had a shot in the bowl game, kind of sputtered in the bowl game. Kind of during spring, sputtered again.
Yeah.
And then over the summer and then through a lot of these first scrimmages, Hank has kind of, gets out there, and every time he has an opportunity, he makes a huge throw, and things you look for from a quarterback. And he hasn't had a lot of experience. So I think also moving forward, you have to put someone there to put a little bit of pressure on your quarterback. At the same time, also got to have somebody that you can throw out there and you can trust in if something was to happen to your starter. And I think the guys in that locker room like Hank at the number 2, because if something happened to Peyton, they don't feel like it's going to be a drop off because it's throw the football.
Yeah. It's very true. Speaking of depth chart, I thought it was funny when you look at the defensive side of Hugh's depth chart, which Hugh hates a freaking depth chart. He'll tell you that in every coach's meeting. There are no distinguished starters / backup for the defense. It is all listed as all the names in bold, and everyone is basically an or, which I get it. Coaches are like, I don't freaking know. This could change in 3 days. And I also don't want to give this to my opponent unnecessarily. As a member of the media, it's a pain in the butt to not have a clear depth chart. You probably can echo that sentiment as you're preparing for calling this one on the radio. But why do you think that it's shaking out that way for the defense, that he kind of feels across the board that all of these guys that essentially will have a role?
Well, he wants them to earn it. This is Coach Durkin is coming in as new defense coordinator.
Yeah.
Coach Durkin is one of those high motor energy type guys, and he don't believe in, hey, because you was a starter last year doesn't mean you're a starter this year.
Yeah.
And, he wants to see guys in game action, see how they respond to calls, see how they respond to, going out and playing to adversity and all those type of things. I don't get to know a lot from you just in practice.
Right.
You got to show me in games. I think the first 3 games of any season with any team, I think it's the opportunity to prove that you belong as a starter. Yes, you may have your 2-3 guys that you feel like, hey, this guy he's gonna start no matter what, but every other position on that defense, though, it's open.
Yeah.
And, so you get to play Alabama A&M first game, and then you get Cal, and then you get New Mexico. Okay, that's your first 3 games. Now you start getting into the teeth of your defense. Teeth of your schedule, and you get Arkansas, you get Oklahoma and Georgia before you get a bye week. So who's going to be my starters leading me into this teeth of our defense in the heart of our schedule? So that's probably saying that because he wants guys not to get complacent.
I like it. I think it's important as well, like you mentioned, the way the schedule sits at the beginning of season. Also, a couple notables, Austin Keys and Keontae Scott, both guys that have had to kind of work their way back from injury. Coach Freeze said they are listed as probable as of right now. They said that the trainers would probably continue to evaluate, have them do walkthroughs and stuff this week. That likely means they'll get playing time. How much and how lenient coach will be with them, I'd be interested to see, because if you're in a situation where you don't have to, guys that are teetering with health, like, you're not going to risk anything, especially guys as impactful as Keys and Scott. But just wanted to update that. Also, kicker Alex McPherson, who's been dealing with an intestinal issue, is likely not going to kick on Saturday. So Towns Magoo is going to be the guy. Obviously, he put on a show in the spring game. It was pretty much his game on A-Day. So it will be Towns getting the starting kicker's duty as Alex continues to handle whatever his body is going through right now. So just a couple updates on that one. I also wanted to talk to you about an element that is going to be introduced to college football this year. We saw it a little bit during bowl season. A few of the bowls were allowed to work with it, but it will officially be part of the FBS this season, and that is in-helmet communication, and it is tablets on the sidelines. Those will be new additions to the college football season this year. So obviously, as a former quarterback who played both with and without, just wanted to get your take on this being introduced to the college game. And one thing I wanted to point out that I don't think is common knowledge, the quarterbacks have this capability, but you also have a defensive player with the capability on the field as well. So you will have a guy on your defense who is receiving calls from the defensive coordinator, things like that. But the communication shuts off with 15 seconds left on the play clock. So this is not just open-ended walkie-talkie where a coach could be telling a receiver he's open and telling who to, like, they're not coaching them through the entirety of the play. They get the call in. They have to be swift about it because with 15 seconds remaining on the play clock, the sound goes out. So that is a new addition this year. Wanted to get your take on what kind of an advantage or a benefit the helmet comms can have.
Yeah, thanks, John Harbaugh. For implementing the NFL into college.
To Connor Stallions, everybody.
Right. Yeah, if you want to get rid of people stealing your signs and all of that, then implement communication. And for a quarterback, communication gets in. Guys get rolling, going pretty fast. Will that signify, Taylor? Will that signify more huddling? We've seen the last couple of years teams doing less huddling because everyone's going fast and trying to beat the defense.
Right.
Wear the defense down, and you're signaling out signals and everything. Will you still do that, or will you see a lot of teams huddle a little bit more just because the play call is coming in through the helmet of the quarterback, and you want to be able to communicate that to the players in the huddle without trying to walk over here and tell a guy here, a signal here, a signal there.
True.
So if you're going to communicate through the helmet, then most of the time everyone needs to be in tight so that the quarterback can make one call and that's it. So those type of things are things that that I feel like from a standpoint, it's going to help college football.
I agree.
Even when you get to the sideline, a tablet. So when you get to the sideline, it's not like they can put up stats on there. It's not like they can. Only thing you can look at is like the play that you're running. That you just ran, and you can go back and review. Like, hey, the defense lined up in this front. They brought this type of blitz. So next time we see it, you kind of can be on top of it, be alert for it. You point out stuff with the receivers. Hey, I need you to get more depth on this route. Just things like that you can talk within the game that now you can visualize on the sideline with the tablet.
Right.
Defensively, same thing. They go over the same stuff as well. They look at their tablets. Coaches can now, especially your position coaches, they can walk over to you with a tablet and say, hey, you gotta be here and not over there on this play. And those types. So you get a lot of more in-game communication, which we did when we was in the NFL. So it's nothing new for guys that's played in the NFL. It's just now it's getting to these guys in college before they get to the NFL. It sounds like the NFL is moving everything to college, right? It seems like the only thing we haven't done yet is change the kickoff rule, but that's probably going to come eventually. But
which I hate.
Yeah, because you take away great players. Look at Devin Hester.
I agree.
Hall of Famer off kickoff return. He changed games off kickoff return.
Yep.
So like Deshaun Jackson, a lot of these guys that started off at kickoff returners and end up getting into the receiver position because they're such exceptional athletes. You're now taking that away from some kids.
Oh yeah.
Giving guys an opportunity. So I'm like you. I don't like the new kickoff rule because you take away opportunity for people that has pure talent at doing those things. But
totally. And how many games have you seen changed on a play like that?
Oh, a lot.
We're taking that away too.
A lot. You just think about it, like a lot of times. So special teams is a huge part of the game. Just ask Auburn 1 second left. It's a huge part of the ball game. And it's always three phases to the game. It's not just offense and defense. You can lose or win games on special teams.
I totally agree. I think the helmet comms and the tablets on the sidelines, it makes sense, both of them. It doesn't feel like it's any more advantageous for one side of the ball than the other, or for a home team versus an away team. Like, it just makes sense. So I think it'll be good. The only potential casualty is if there are any kind of technology issues, which Coach Freeze said in one of their scrimmages that the comm system went out for 2 plays on offense. And obviously it wasn't detrimental in a situation like that, but in a neck and neck SEC game, 2 plays could make the difference. So if you do get into a situation where there are technology glitches and this is not working and you do have to go back to the sideline and then you've got delay of game, like that's where it could be sticky. But hopefully everyone's stadium situations have had enough time to prepare for this. I also want to make sure to point out, because they really drove this home for us at our college football seminar for ESPN. We had Steve Shaw, who's overseeing of officials in college football. The tablets are not allowed to be anywhere near a referee when challenging a play call. Like, a coach will get a flag thrown if he tries to show the tablet to a ref when they're challenging a play. It cannot be utilized as a form of evidence in play review. If a coach attempts to do that and use the tablet for that reason, they will get a flag thrown on them. So an important distinction, there is like etiquette to utilization of these tablets. And also, like you mentioned, this is not going to be something where they're uploading footage of prior games or highlights or whatever. They are truly just getting a feed of the game in front of them from the field for them to kind of, especially at halftime. I mean, think about halftime and how impactful that is in those 15 minutes to actually be able to see from different vantage points. But just wanted to point out those little elements. And we also are going to have a 2-minute timeout. We cannot call it a 2-minute warning. That is not allowed according to our officiating committee. So it will be a timeout. When you get into the 2 minutes, if a current play is happening, obviously the clock will not stop just because it hit 2 minutes. They'll go until the whistle is blown. And within 2 minutes of both halves, we will have an official initiated timeout.
Well, you mentioned some huge points there. You talked about, of course, the 2 minute. So coaches can still communicate in the helmet during 2 minutes. So if you're trying to go down the field fast, you're trying to score, the coach can be in the ear, hey, signal this out there, give them this, give them that. You know, at the time I was in the pros, of course, you're a pro quarterback, so it's a little different in college. You know, you would have your 7 plays in your head.
Mm-hmm.
That the coach will give you the first play, and after that, you're calling your own. You know, so you have your pass plays, your run plays you want to get to based off certain looks and defenses that y'all covered that week for 2 minutes, because time is of essence. So you want to go as fast as possible. So I imagine, Taylor, when you talk about the helmets going out, that actually happened almost every game. When I was
really?
So you're going to have a play or two where it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you'll see quarterbacks looking to the sideline like, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Those type things. When that happens, usually your backup quarterback is standing next to the coach. And usually the coach has you practice certain signals during the week that the helmet goes out. Here's are the 5 to 7 plays that we're going to get to. So if the helmet goes out, I'm going to signal to the guy, the set backup quarterback, usually going to signal a play in to the quarterback, and then he can still go ahead and call a play. You know, so you still have your 5 to 7 plays that you get to if the communication goes out. Now, if it's thick of a game and you got to have a certain play call, you take a timeout. You know, you don't want to waste your timeouts, but you know, if you got to have it 4th down, take a timeout.
Yeah.
Situation you don't just rush a play in.
Totally.
So those are the keys there. And everything. So yeah, a lot of good changes, you know, this year. You still got the hip. They're not calling it a hip drop. It's called something else. Defender can't leave both feet and kind of jump on the guy's back and kind of bring him to the ground, where it's kind of whiplash him a little bit. That now will be a huge penalty as well.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of our opponent, Alabama A&M, obviously, Coach Speak would tell you respect every opponent, and also that you're worried about yourself more than your opponent. So something along those lines. But I will say their quarterback, Xavier Langford, is returning after being limited to just 8 appearances for them last season, but he had over 1,200 passing yards in 2022. Their safety, Marvin Smith, is also no slouch. I'm sure our wide receivers are keyed in on him in film. He finished 3rd in tackles with 54, had 4 pass deflections, an interception, and a fumble last year. So definitely a guy that our receiving corps will be privy to, and it's a great opportunity for our defense as well, as Alabama A&M has been known to run the ball a good bit. So I think that it's a good opener for us. I've seen all the same media slander that Auburn's non-conference schedule is trash. Yeah, I get it. Okay. But I think that given what our reality has been for the last few years and what the potential is for this season, it's a gut check for your team. How do you come out? What kind of statement do you want to make? And where does this team still have to go? Coach Freeze says you really truly don't know who you are until about 3 games in. So game 1, you learn a lot. You have stuff to take back to the drawing board. You got to get out of there with a win. I mean, like, let's we not forget a team that we lost to last season that we certainly shouldn't have. So you got to get out with a win. Does it feel like it's going to happen? Yes. But with coach speak kind of talk, what is kind of the emphasis schematically? We kind of talked about position groups, but what should be clicking in week 1, knowing that there's ample time for it to continue to gel, but in week 1, what do you need to feel like is already pretty cohesive?
So we're not getting a Georgia Tech, Florida State matchup. We're not getting a Clemson, Georgia. We're not getting Miami, Florida.
Notre Dame, Texas A&M.
Texas A&M. We're not getting that game first game, right? Auburn's trying to rebuild the program, right? So you're trying to get back to winning ways. And you look at our overall schedule, we have an opportunity to do that this year if we can start winning games early and consistently. When you think about this type of game, last time Auburn played Alabama A&M was 2016, and it was 55-0. So it may not be a lot of sparks for the opponent in this game, but they will have a good band, though. They definitely have a good band. Yeah, so stay tuned to halftime show.
Halftime will be fun.
But in this game, you're looking for all the things that you need to correct going into game 2, right? You want the false start penalties. You want to know how can guys get off the line of scrimmage, defensively and offensively. When you think about the young receivers, like I don't care if it's A&M or if it's Jones Junior College or somebody you're playing, they're going to be nervous. It's their first collegiate game.
Right.
And you want them to go out there and be able to make mistakes so that you can go back and correct them. You need a confidence booster for your quarterback, right? Let Peyton go out there and light it up a little bit. Running the ball and everything, try to keep the running backs fresh. But the important thing to me, Taylor, is we're still juggling our offensive line right now. So I'm glad we're not playing a superior opponent.
Yeah.
Because we haven't figured out our front 5 guys. We thought we had it figured out, with Percy Lewis coming over from Mississippi State, moving to left tackle. Then that put Dylan Wade at left guard. Then put Connor Lew in at the center and Jeremiah Wright at the right guard and Tall Miller at the right tackle. Okay. But now they're not confident as much with Percy being at left tackle. He's kind of, not there yet. So now we played left tackle last year, Dylan Wade. Dylan Wade experienced left tackle. So now you put Dylan Wade back at left tackle. Now you have to ask yourself, can we put Percy inside and can Percy learn inside a guard? Because that may be the best thing for him if he wants to extend his career. Because if left tackle is not working out where you can move fast enough in college, it's a whole other ball game in the pros. So as big as he is and everything, probably putting him inside that guard probably helps his career if he can channel it and if he can go out there and really learn. So those first couple of games for Percy at left guard are going to be huge. How fast can he catch on at left guard? Because this transition just happened, a week and a half ago. So now he's got to learn how to play guard. So what happens if he can't play guard? What happens? Do you put Dylan Wade back at guard and put Tyler Johnson, the highly touted redshirt freshman, at left guard? Or do you keep Dylan at left tackle and you put Tate Johnson at left guard? So those first couple of games, keep an eye out on the offensive line as far as rotation there. Even Ronan Chambers, the kid transfer from Akron, they talk highly about him. Maybe if you have to move too tall to somewhere and put him in at right tackle. So there's a lot. The good thing about it, there's depth at the offensive line position. So, but you want to have your 5 guys you can depend on. Especially after week 3 before you head into your SEC schedule. Who are your best 5?
Right, and where?
and where. So keep an eye out on how the offensive line juggles over the first 3 weeks.
Okay.
See who's going to be your 5 guys going into the Arkansas game. Let me ask you a question, though. It's a game that Auburn should go out and dominate, right? Now, it's not a game like Colorado playing North Dakota State. I think it's a scary game for them on Thursday
For
because
sure.
this team knows how to win, right?
Yep.
So when you talk about playing a team like Alabama A&M, Arkansas playing Arkansas Pine Bluff,
Yeah.
and Coach Petrino came out and said, how come big conference just don't donate some money to the FCS schools, allow the FCS school to go play someone that's relevant to their competition because they don't have as many scholarships as us and they don't have as much depth as us.
Right.
Us beating up on them and then risking them to have further injury for their conference down the road, just to play this game so they can get funding for
Totally.
things. How come the big conferences just don't donate to the FCS schools and we go play a bigger game that's more appealing to college fans, more appealing to people that pay for season tickets to come watch you play, have a better product on the field, but also protecting the FCS school with their athletes, but also helping them still be able to fund their programs.
Right. I don't disagree with the donation of funds to them, and I have covered many a lopsided game where arguably one of the best players on, let's say, an FCS team gets injured and is out for the rest of the season. And that game was not going to make a dent in their season had they not even played it. My problem is, I think by helping preserve them, you're risking your guys more, unless we're shortening the season. I think if you've got a season of 12, 13 Power 5 matchups week after week, you won't survive it. Like, I don't think that's going entertainment wise, 100%. Monetarily, financially, TV rights, it checks all the boxes. I don't know how a roster survives that. I mean, as it is, we see people struggle even with usually 2 or 3 opponents that you kind of can breathe and rotate in second string, third string guys, hopefully. So that's my only caveat to that. But I do agree. I think that, it's unfortunate. It's hard to watch. They're not getting good TV slots. They're not getting good advertisement dollars because they're not compelling enough. And then for the FCS schools, they are going to continue to risk it because of the money that now granted, it doesn't always go that way. Sometimes you get the big App State upset or New Mexico State upset. And boy, like, what a mark that it makes. But does it change what they're capable of chasing? Does it get them in a playoff conversation? No. So, like, in the landscape of what we're all doing here, I do agree with him on that. And I think a lot of head coaches probably would, except for the fact that what's going to come in its place is higher potential for injury.
Well, the reason I asked the question is because scholarships are now moving to 105, right?
Yeah.
So you're moving up, 20 scholarships from what you used to have at 85, 84, 85, somewhere around there, to 105. So now you have more depth on your rosters. So now you can play a little bit more deeper games. But you look at Florida, for example, their non-conference schedule is Miami, UCF, and Florida State.
It's brutal.
And then you got to play your SEC schedule. Like, I don't think you should have to play that magnitude of a schedule.
Agreed.
Like,
I don't know who the hell made that.
That's almost too hard. You know what I'm saying?
It is.
Yeah, like just overall, you got to hope your team can stay healthy in those games. And your coach can be fired off a tough schedule like that.
100%.
So just not to that magnitude, but it came up, and I'm kind of looking and thinking about it. I'm like, that kind of makes some sense. Overall. So,
I think you've got, I certainly think group of 5 schools, I think getting into FCS, like some of these really, really small situations, like there's got to be clear levels of distinction there. Otherwise, like some of these weeks are just not. And a lot of things are going to get down to being part of the evaluation for the CFP committee, because now we're down to or up to 12. And you've got to have some non-conference stuff to help tip the scales in your direction. If all of your non-conference wins were local high schools in the area, it's not going to move the needle. You are going to get into situations with the 12-team playoff where several schools basically have the exact same resume. They're sitting there, a 9-win SEC team, comparable victories within the conference. So then we're going to look at your non-conference schedule. And if you've got 2 wins and 1 loss, but one of your wins was over Clemson, and you're a 9-win SEC team, but all of your like non-conferences were not respectable teams and a much lower level of football, the committee's going to lean to the one that stuck their necks on the line and tried to get a bigger. I think you should have to have one Power 4 non-conference game on your schedule. But it all gets started this week. It kind of got started this past weekend with the weird week 0 games, but this one had a pretty crazy one in Ireland with Georgia Tech upsetting Florida State. I really didn't understand the hype around Florida State. No shade, but DJ Uiagalelei couldn't get it done at Clemson. Why were we convinced that this guy was going to come light it up at Florida State? I was very, very confused. Everyone got amnesia because he went to Oregon State for a year and did okay. That's a very different situation than what they're asking him to do at Florida State. Florida State turnover was also pretty high. A lot of their best guys leaving after last year. And then obviously they came in with the chip on their shoulder given the way everything ended last year. But I didn't understand the straight away putting them in the top 5 conversation to start the year. It was the same thing a couple years ago with TCU, and they lost in their first game as well, just because they had been in the championship the year before. I don't get that. But good on Georgia Tech. Like you mentioned, a huge turnaround for that defense. Brent Key, taking over as an interim a couple years ago and bringing his alma mater to what they're doing right now at Tech. And they got a really solid quarterback out of the transfer portal to help them out. So I'm excited to continue to watch that. And I think it's a great example of, one loss is not going to knock you out of the conversation. Noles are grateful for that rule change right now as they're sitting here with 1 loss already. But it also goes to show what I feel is the case this season, that it really is kind of wide open. Like, as much as we feel confident about Georgia, Ohio State, I'm really compelled and really intrigued by Mike Elko at Texas A&M. I am really intrigued by Dylan Gabriel at Oregon. I am really intrigued by what Brian Kelly's finally going to do at LSU and what Lane Kiffin put together at Ole Miss. Riley Leonard at Notre Dame. There's so many teams that you could sit here right now and say, I will still consider them a contender come week 6 or 7. That is going to be a fun season.
Well, to me, the first month to me is wide open because
yes.
I don't even think rankings should even come out anymore to after the first 4 games, because you got all of these transfers, right? And so many different players joining new teams, so many players leaving teams. And so it's not like the old way where you say, okay, this recruiting class was such and such. This recruiting class was top here. So you kind of expect okay, this team should be good this year, right? This
right.
team should be good. You don't know that anymore. Georgia Tech had some transfers that came in, huge difference makers. I watched the College Game Day show, and everyone was just kind of writing off Georgia Tech. Everyone just even Pat McAfee said, Florida State by a lot.
Yep.
And I could tell when the head coach from Georgia Tech was walking pregame, when they was interviewing him, he was locked in and focused.
Yeah.
And to me, the only person that picked Georgia Tech was their celebrity guest. And but everyone else thought just because Florida State had transfers from Alabama, they got 2 from Alabama, they got 1 from Georgia, they got all these transfers. They got, like you said, Ugalele, and I did say the right, Ugalele, but
close enough.
Close enough. Yeah, they got him. So they talk about all these transfers, but what people need to know is you can have all these transfers in the world. Your class better be built off high school recruits. You better be able to plug in 4 or 5 transfers per year to a position that probably needs okay, we need to hurry up and plug a guy because we need to help a young quarterback or get developed or something. But you better not ride your whole team off transfers.
Nope.
Because people have forgotten the word chemistry and cohesiveness and, just learning each other. Like that's important. Like you
Yeah.
got a locker room that has been together with each other for a little bit, gone through some adversity together, won together, lost some close games together, then knows how to go out and compete and have each other's back. People think you just plug and play. You can't just plug and play.
Yeah.
And that was a proven example Saturday. Now
Yep.
there's going to be some more games this Saturday. There's some big ones coming up. I know I'll let you get to it, but there's some big ones coming up this Saturday. There's some people going to be shocked
Yeah.
about what happened. SMU almost lost to Nevada.
Yeah.
So you don't know what you're getting from each team until after the first 4 games of the season.
Agreed. I mean, there's still so much to your first time out there. We hear them talk about it every season. Like, there is only so much you can do going up against your own guys. Like, there is just a totally different mental level. And then also, I see it every single year. Endurance is not where it needs to be yet. The first few games are a kick to the chest. Guys are cramping, guys are getting oxygen in the locker room. Like, you're still working for a lot of fluids for a lot of the country. It is still the thick of summer, but these guys are also not used to a full 60 minutes going full speed. They haven't done that in a long time. So there are elements of week 1, penalties, noise, that you just can't duplicate no matter how hard you try in the off season. So it will definitely be interesting the first few weeks to see who looks like they're clicking early, because that's really the difference maker in the first month. I am super, I know everyone's wanting to talk about Clemson, Georgia. Notre Dame, Texas A&M for me is the highlight this weekend. LSU, USC will be fine too, but Mike Elko against Riley Leonard, are you kidding me? Like, the two of them both leaving Duke after bringing that program to what no one thought it could ever be. And both of them end up in a different situation. I think great situations for both of them, but they know each other so well. So the fact that they're facing each other in week 1, I think is the most compelling matchup of the weekend.
Ooh, I like that matchup just because if anyone knows your quarterback, it should be your head coach that just coached you, right?
Right.
So, Riley Leonard going to, Notre Dame. It's a lot of pressure. It just happened with the kid that transferred there from Wake Forest. And
Sam Hartman.
Yeah, Sam Hartman. It would have helped Hartman to stay at Wake Forest from a draft perspective, had he stayed there. When you think about Riley Leonard, a guy that, was in conversation with Auburn, maybe being one of the spots that he would have transferred to. It came down between Auburn and Notre Dame. That's an intriguing matchup because there's been no talk about A&M all summer.
I know.
Jimbo was there. It was always talk about A&M all summer. So in a way, it kind of scares you in the SEC because you know A&M can recruit and you don't really know what they have because it's been so quiet. And everyone knows that Coach Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame is kind of on a little bit of a hot seat this year because everyone expecting Notre Dame to be in the playoffs. And they expect them not just to be in the playoff, they expect them to try to finish in the top 8. So there's so much pressure on a young coach, who's and everything that's trying to win a national program. So that game already, game 1, get your popcorn ready.
No kidding.
About Clemson and Georgia, 11 a.m. kickoff at the Mercedes-Benz. Clemson is not very heavy in the transfer portal.
No, Dabo
has said that he would not dive deep into the transfer portal.
Yeah.
So he has talent. He's had some couple good classes. Now these guys have come of age. Now it's the time they're supposed to be groomed and ready. So with them having the year they had last year, not the year they wanted to have, with the young quarterback that's supposed to have been, the next hot quarterback coming out of Clemson, hasn't gotten there yet, but they expect him to be better this year. And you're talking about facing a Georgia team that's had a lot of chaos this offseason with the cars and guys getting in trouble and guys getting kicked off the team and, all these different things as people call distractions, right? So, and everyone's still picking them number 1. Everyone's saying they're still the team to beat in the SEC, which most part you agree with. Why? Because Kirby is kind of the lead dog right now, right? So
is Carson.
Right, and Carson is the lead quarterback. So everyone's picking them to win the SEC. So you got to go through Georgia. But nationally, people are saying you got to go through Georgia. So you got all these things that everyone's telling you how great you are, but then you have all these other things pulling at you where guys are communicating in the locker room and guys getting kicked off the team left and right and getting in trouble. So,
That's true.
both can't go hand in hand. So something's got to give. So to me, that makes that a compelling game.
Okay.
Even though it's in Georgia's backyard, it's still going to be a compelling game to me. I have no idea why that game is at 11 a.m., but
Me either.
it should have been a night game. But at the same time, I guess, but the Sunday game, you talked about LSU and USC, to me is another intriguing matchup.
Yep.
And everything, Taylor. Just because Lincoln Riley has never had a defense, everyone keeps saying it. He got a new defensive coordinator, and what would he do without Caleb Williams? He carried that offense last year.
Yep.
So what will he do this year that he doesn't have Caleb Williams? And then LSU, you don't have the Heisman Trophy winner. The Heisman Trophy winner gone. Neighbors gone.
Yep.
So what are you going to do with your offense and your quarterback and both coaches $100 million men with the pressure on to make the playoffs?
We hit the ground freaking running. Week 2, we have Texas, Michigan. There are some really freaking good Power 4 matchups happening early in season. And again, you want to catch the committee's attention with your resume and what you're able to do early, because there are going to be arguments for a lot of teams this season. So
Texas lost their running back, so that's
their running back room is depleted big time. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm so freaking excited to see how all of this fares, and specifically for Auburn, there is plenty for us to improve upon. A lot was left to be desired last season, so I'm hopeful that the off season was as positive as we all have heard it was. Recruiting has continued to thrive. Like you mentioned, we actually flipped 4-star defensive lineman Nate Marshall. Is that his name, I believe?
Yeah, from Michigan.
Flipped him from Michigan. That was a great get. So that class continues to rack up. I also wanted to mention really, really amazing news. Brian Battie was released from the hospital following that shooting in May. He suffered a shot to the head, and unfortunately his brother lost his life in that terrible accident. But there was a prognosis briefly that he was going to be paralyzed, and his family fully believes that it is a miracle, and they have been praying over him ever since he was admitted and he was able to walk out of the hospital. And that is just incredible news. Praise God. But let's continue to pray for Brian as rehab and more progress is still to come. But I did just want to mention that. I also wanted to, but for us to structure these episodes, I always just do quick little bullets of topics I want to talk about. And my last one is Jarrett Stidham being a weenie. And I totally forgot that I wanted to talk about this, because that is just the perfect way to put it. Mostly because I wanted to give a shout out to Bo Nix that he has been named the starter for the Broncos, and give a big congrats to him. That's fantastic. He had shown a lot in camp and in preseason games. He looked composed. He looked in control. He was seeing the field well. So the Broncos ultimately named him the starting job over both Jarrett Stidham and Zach Wilson. And Jarrett Stidham's response was a bit questionable and a bit weenie-like, in my opinion, because he basically immediately was like, I'm disappointed, which no problem with that. But then proceeded to say, I know I'm a starting quarterback in this league. I know the kind of player I am. I know the kind of person I am. I'm going to be ready to go. It was giving salty. And as professional teammates on the same team, and the fact that you both went to the same school, albeit briefly, Jarrett Stidham, it's not giving great teammate. That, as opposed to Zach Wilson, who was pumped for Bo, he's shown out, and I thought it was giving poor loser energy.
Well, it's only 32 jobs in the United States that you can be a starting quarterback in the National Football League. I get it, you're upset, you lose the starting job and everything, but you draft the quarterback number 12 overall. Dude, you should have known right then he's going to start.
Thank you.
You're in the business world. You're married to someone whose father is in the business world of pro sports, and they're going to invest a lot of money into Bo. Who's going to play?
Yeah.
They're going to play him. Like, all he had to do was look decent during the preseason. He was starting.
And it was his. Yep.
Because they're looking for the future. They're trying to get Bo as many reps as they possibly can without the pressure being too hot, right? So
Yes.
so this is the time to go ahead and implement him in there. It's not like Bo is a true rookie. Like, he's plays for what, 6 years, started for 6 years in college football.
Seriously.
He's older than I think it came out. He's like older than 7 starters in the football league. Like, so it's not
I
like
believe it.
he's not like he's a true rookie.
Right.
He's seen a lot of football, and he's played a lot of football as a starter in college. So him and Michael Penix,
Right.
both guys have had a lot of starts. So I just feel like for Stidham, he's salty because this was his last opportunity. He felt like to prove himself in the National Football League, to get a starting job somewhere. And he kind of sees that door closing. And at the end of the day, dude, you're still in the National Football League.
Exactly.
You're making what, $5 million, I think they're giving him as a backup. But at the end of the day, I get it from a competitor standpoint. You want the opportunity to be on the field and play. Now, if he feels like he beat Bo out because he feel like on tape he beat him out, then I understand him being a little bit frustrated. But again, like I said, if it's close, they're going with the guy they drafted the most.
Not only did they go get Bo at 12, but a guy like Sean Payton is involved in the decision. Right. Of course he's about to be pouring into this kid. The writing's been on the wall since April.
Right. I see Bo,
Jared
needs to be careful, because you don't want to come off to a point that you could be bad in the locker room for Bo
100%.
To the point that they cut you.
Exactly.
They cut you. Money's not guaranteed this year, and they decide they want to cut you before next Sunday's game and put Zach Wilson, who's had some starts in the National Football League, put him at backup, and then they cut you, and now you went from a $5 million salary to now looking for a job somewhere.
No, 100%. I can understand, as a competitor, as someone who is confident in their abilities, being disappointed, which is how he started the statement. But there is a time and a place to express that. You schedule a meeting with your head coach. You go in and have whatever conversations you need to in private to make that case. You don't do it in a press conference when people are asking you, as someone who also went to Auburn. There are so many ties between you and Bo. People wanted I'm disappointed, but like, Bo's shown something. I'm going to pour into, I'm happy for Bo. None of that.
Because you got Zach Wilson there. Like, he's a capable
back. He was in a really bad situation with the Jets.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And you're right. Bad situation with a coordinator that was just at Denver that had Russell Wilson, and they looked so bad.
Yep.
Then he goes to the Jets, and, but this the kid you had to put him up under. Like, was that a real fair shake to the kid? And he went in as a youngster. I think he went in the pros as 20 years old. So he's still growing. And the thing is, they could immediately implement him at number 2 and just say, hey, we want to get rid of the bad blood in the locker room. Boom. You're cut. So he needs to play it closer to the vest.
I agree.
That first game, because out of the first game, once you're a veteran in the National Football League, your salary is guaranteed for the season. So he needs to play as close as possible to get to Sunday.
Yep.
Well, whatever next Sunday they play, whatever. So, great point. Guys got to understand you're always one injury away, and you better be careful, because if something does happen to the other guy and your opportunity presents itself, but you've been so salty and everything, and all of a sudden you get out there and things doesn't happen the way that you want them to happen, go. If you'd have been supportive in the beginning, you might have got some of that same support when your time came. So you have to be very careful as a teammate. I hate the strong word. I dislike when guys say, oh, I'm a good teammate, until it doesn't go your way.
100%.
Teammate is someone that's going to stick to you throughout, whether it's your way or not your way. Even when I wasn't starting at one point, everyone was watching to see how I was going to react.
Yes.
I'm a good teammate with everybody. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I got back in there. Everybody was super happy, and they rallied, and we went on this huge winning streak. You know what I'm saying? So you got to understand those type of things, man, as a professional sport, especially at that position. That position can change at any minute, because sometimes there's a lot of things you can't control. There's a lot of things you can control, but some things are out of your control. Even if you do look better than the guy in front of you, sometimes it comes down to who they're more invested in. It is a business at the end of the day. So they're more invested into Bo. They're going to invest the time and energy more into Bo than they are to Stidham.
Right. 100%. I think that's a really good point. And you use the word professional, and that's what you are. And in the workplace, like, you got to maintain your cool. And I just did not think that was the right way to handle it. And unfortunately, 2 Auburn quarterbacks in the news for something like that. But just wanted to get your take on it because figured you would have a personal insight on it. But that is going to do it for us this week. A full week 1 episode, and away we freaking go. As always, you can catch Jay on the radio coverage, Auburn Sports Network, this week as the Tigers take on Alabama A&M at home. Kickoff 6:30 Central Time, and if you aren't able to attend, it will be on SEC Network Plus. So you do have to have the app to stream this one, but looking forward to recapping this one and hopefully an Auburn win. I know everyone will be busy watching Clemson, Georgia, but if you're not, I will be on Virginia Tech, Vanderbilt, a little ACC-SEC matchup. We will be 12 Eastern on ESPN, so right after College Game Day. So if you don't feel like watching the Dogs, or if you want to have both TVs up, I'll see you there. We'll be here in Nashville. I don't have to travel week 1, and I'm very happy about that. But plenty of action for us to break down next week, as we mentioned, with all these week 1 games, and of course, finally getting to see our Tigers play. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. You'll receive a notification whenever we release our episodes, which will be back to our weekly format now that we are in season. So make sure you do that. Leave us a like and a review. If you prefer video format, we are on Believe's YouTube channel. Just search Believe in Everything Auburn, and all of our videos will pop up there. And we will talk next week to hopefully recap our first dub of the season. So everyone enjoy it. Jason, have a good call, and we will talk next week. We're Eagles.
Football season already. Let's go.